The kingdom of Eldoria was a quiet realm, cradled by misty mountains and ancient pine forests. Yet beneath this tranquil surface lay a dark, unsettling mystery, one that had stolen the sleep of the kingdom's wisest minds. Every single morning, as the first rays of dawn touched the spires of the royal castle, the chief steward would discover a bizarre and baffling sight. Placed upon a silver tray outside the chamber of Princesses Elena, Sophia, and Lily were their royal slippers. But these elegant shoes were always ruined, shredded, their soles worn thin and coated in a strange, shimmering silver dust that belonged to no known mine or earth in this world. The mystery defied all logic. Every night, the heavy oak door of the princess's chamber was locked from the outside by King Aldrich himself. The heavy iron key remained on a chain draped around the king's neck. Escaping through the windows was impossible. They were narrow, barred with iron, and overlooked a sheer drop into the castle moat. No one entered. No one left. Yet every morning the slippers looked as though the sisters had walked miles over rugged mountain paths and danced for hours in some magical revelry. King Aldrich loved his daughters more than life itself. Since the untimely passing of Queen Eleanor, the three girls were his only solace in the world. Elena, the eldest, was wise, quiet, and deep. Behind her calm gaze, however, always lingered the shadow of a secret burden. Sophia, the middle sister, was curious and restless, constantly searching through ancient, dusty library volumes for answers to the world's secrets. Lily, the youngest, had the kindest heart, but was exceedingly fragile and timid. She was often plagued by nightmares that left her weeping in the dark. During the day, the sisters behaved perfectly normally. They walked in the royal gardens, played the pianoforte, and dined with their father. But as the sun dipped below the western mountains, casting long, eerie shadows over the castle, their demeanor shifted. Their laughter faded. Their eyes drifted toward the western tower of the castle, staring into the dusk as if listening to a faint, distant melody that only they could hear. King Aldrich had tried to ignore the change at first, but when the mystery of the ruined shoes persisted day after day for over a month, he could no longer remain silent. One morning, the royal shoemaker, an old man named Joseph, entered the throne room, trembling. In his hands he held the worn-out slippers. "Your Majesty," Joseph said, bowing low, "I have crafted shoes from the finest leather for decades, and they last for years. But these slippers, it is as if they have been scorched by a magical fire. And this silver dust, I have never seen anything like it in all Eldoria." The king took one of the slippers. As his fingers touched the sole, an intense chill ran through him, as if he were holding a block of ice. He whispered, "There are no silver mines in our kingdom. Where does this dust come from? Are my daughters trapped under some sorcerer's spell?" That very day, King Aldrich summoned Captain Cedric of the Royal Guard. "Tonight," the king ordered grimly, 20 armed guards will be stationed outside the princess's chamber and along the corridors. Every window and crevice must be watched. I want answers before the sun rises." Captain Cedric placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and saluted. "Your Majesty, not a single eyelid shall close tonight. If even a gust of wind tries to enter that chamber, I will know of it." As night fell, an unnatural silence descended upon Eldoria Castle. The torches along the corridors flickered weakly. 20 guards, wielding heavy broadswords, took their positions around the princess's quarters. Captain Cedric stood directly outside the heavy oak door. Midnight arrived.
As the great castle clock began to chime 12, a strange phenomenon occurred. A thick, freezing mist began to roll along the stone floors. The warm red glow of the torches slowly turned an eerie pale blue. At that exact moment, a soft, hypnotic melody drifted through the air. The music seemed to rise from the very depths of the earth, hauntingly beautiful and terrifyingly seductive. One of the guards turned to Cedric, his voice slurred. "Captain, do you hear that?" Cedric tried to answer, but his eyelids felt incredibly heavy. In a desperate bid to stay awake, he pricked his thigh with the tip of his dagger. But the power of the melody was overwhelming. One by one, the guards slumped against the walls, falling into a deep slumber. The sword slipped from Cedric's limp hand as he too collapsed onto the cold stone floor. When Cedric finally regained consciousness, the music had stopped. He scrambled to his feet, horrified to find his men still fast asleep. With trembling hands, he unlocked the door to the princess's chamber. Everything inside looked perfectly ordinary. The three sisters lay in their beds, sleeping peacefully. But the air in the room was freezing, filled with the heavy scent of lilies and damp earth. And beneath their beds, the 3 pairs of slippers lay shredded and coated in shimmering silver dust. Panic spread through the kingdom following this failure. Rumors circulated in the villages that the princesses were cursed by an ancient witch, or that they danced with the spirits of the underworld. Desperate, King Aldrich issued a royal proclamation to Eldoria and all neighboring realms. He who uncovers the secret of where the princesses go each night shall be rewarded with immense wealth and the right to marry the princess of his choice. But should any seeker try and fail for 3 consecutive nights, he shall be banished from the kingdom forever. Lured by the promise of wealth and glory, brave suitors began to arrive. First came Prince Charles of Valoria, a proud and arrogant young man who relied entirely on his physical strength. On his first night, Charles was stationed in the chamber adjoining the princess's room. Around 11 o'clock, Princess Elena entered, carrying a silver tray with a cup of steaming, fragrant tea. "Prince Charles," Elena said with a gentle smile, "we are deeply grateful for your efforts. Drink this tea. It will ease your weariness." Enchanted by her beauty, Charles drank the tea in a single gulp. Within 10 minutes, a deep, dreamless sleep claimed him. When he awoke, the sun was high in the sky, and the princess's shoes were once again ruined. He could remember nothing. After 3 nights of the same failure, he was sent away in disgrace. Next came a famous knight, Sir Gareth, and later a clever wizard. But none could resist the nightly slumber or the sweet, drugged tea. Eldoria's future seemed to slip deeper into hopelessness. Far from the bustling castle, a lone traveler walked through the dense pine forests. His name was Rowan. Rowan wore simple, battle-worn leather armor. On his back was a plain bow, and at his hip hung a common iron sword. He was no prince. He was a veteran scout of the border wars. Years of survival taught him that a sharp eye and a quiet ear were far more valuable than a heavy sword. Each mystery, he believed, left behind physical clues. One simply had to know how to look. As dusk began to paint the forest in shades of gold, Rowan spotted an old woman gathering wild herbs. Her back was bent, but her eyes were remarkably bright. Rowan stopped his horse and offered her his waterskin. "Mother, what are you doing out in these woods at this hour? Please, drink some water."
The old woman drank and smiled warmly. "Thank you, young soldier. It is rare to find such kindness in these dark times. Tell me, where is your path leading you?" Rowan sighed. "I do not know. The war is over, and I am merely a wanderer now." The old woman reached into her basket and pulled out a faded gray cloak. It looked thoroughly ordinary, patched in several places. "Then go to Eldoria Castle," the old woman said. "A great mystery awaits you there. But remember, whatever the princesses offer you, no matter how sweet, is a magical sleeping draught. When they hand you the tea, pretend to drink it, but do not let a single drop touch your lips. Pour it away secretly." Rowan looked at the cloak in confusion. "And what of this?"
"This is no ordinary cloak," the woman whispered. "It is the Cloak of Shadows. When you wrap it around your shoulders, no eye in this world will be able to see you. Even the sound of your footsteps will vanish into the air. But beware, if fear takes root in your heart, the cloak's magic will falter." Before Rowan could ask another question, a sudden gust of wind swept through the trees, swirling dry leaves into the air. When the dust settled, the old woman was gone. Only the gray cloak remained in Rowan's hands. The following evening, Rowan arrived at Eldoria Castle. When King Aldrich saw the solitary, road-weary soldier, his eyes held no hope. "You are no prince, Rowan," the king said. "You have no magic. How do you expect to succeed where so many others have failed?" Rowan answered calmly, "Your Majesty, the princes came with swords and pride. I come with my eyes and ears open. I believe in listening more than speaking." Impressed by Rowan's quiet confidence, King Aldrich allowed him to take his watch in the chamber adjoining the princess's room. By 10 o'clock, Rowan was sitting on the bed in his chamber, his ear pressed against the wall. A soft knock sounded at his door. Opening it, he found Princess Elena. She held a silver tray with a cup of steaming, aromatic tea. The scent was incredibly sweet, carrying a faint, metallic undertone. "Soldier Rowan," Elena said, her voice soft and sympathetic. "You must be exhausted from your travels. Drink this herbal tea. It will grant you a restful sleep." "Thank you for your kindness, Your Highness," Rowan replied, politely taking the cup. As soon as Elena left and closed the door, Rowan held the cup to his lips but did not drink. Instead, he carefully poured the dark liquid into the soil of a potted fern near the window. To his horror, the moment the tea touched the soil, the green fern withered, turning black and brittle, and a faint noxious vapor rose from the pot. Rowan shuddered. Were the princesses willingly poisoning their guardians, or were they puppets of some darker force? Quickly, Rowan lay down on the bed and began to snore loudly, feigning a deep sleep. Before long, quiet whispers drifted through the wall from the adjacent room. "Elena, is the new soldier asleep?" Sophia's voice asked. Elena replied, "Yes, he drank the entire cup. He won't wake before morning." But Lily's voice trembled. "I have a terrible feeling tonight. The air feels heavy. I feel as though someone is watching us." "Do not worry, Lily," Elena comforted her. "We only have a few more nights left. Then the pact will be complete." "A pact? What pact?" Rowan's heart raced with suspense. Suddenly, a low grinding sound echoed through the wall, the sound of stone sliding against stone. Rowan slipped out of bed. He wrapped the gray cloak of shadows around his shoulders. Instantly, his form vanished from sight, and even his footsteps became completely silent.
He slipped through the door into the princess's chamber. It was empty, but Elena's bed had been slid aside, revealing a dark, steep stone staircase leading into the depths of the earth. From below, a cold wind carried that same haunting melody. The three princesses had already descended. Without hesitation, Rowan stepped into the dark passageway.
The staircase was incredibly long and damp. The walls shimmered with naturally glowing blue crystals, casting an eerie celestial light over the descent. Rowan followed the princesses silently, keeping a safe distance. When the staircase finally ended, Rowan gasped in disbelief. Before him lay a vast, subterranean world that seemed far too massive to exist beneath the earth. There was no sky, but the cavern's ceiling was dotted with glowing specks that resembled distant stars. Before them stretched a dense, enchanted forest. Every tree in this woodland was made of solid silver. The leaves were delicate sheets of precious metal, clinking against one another in the gentle breeze like thousands of tiny crystal bells. As the princesses hurried ahead, Rowan's curiosity got the better of him. He reached out to break a silver branch as proof of his journey. Crack! The sharp sound of the snapping metal resonated loudly through the silent woods. The three princesses froze. Lily clutched Sophia's hand in terror. "Did you hear that? Someone is following us!" Sophia scanned the darkness, her eyes passing right over Rowan's invisible form. "There is no one here, Lily. It must have been a silver fruit falling to the ground." Elena said gravely, "We are running late. We must hurry." Rowan breathed a sigh of relief and slipped the silver branch beneath his cloak. Leaving the silver trees behind, they entered a forest of solid gold. The air here was warm, and golden butterflies fluttered through the shimmering canopy. Hoping to secure more evidence, Rowan reached out and pulled at a golden branch. Clang! The sound of the snapping gold was even louder this time. Lily broke into tears. "I am certain someone is behind us. I can hear breathing." Sophia, now genuinely suspicious, walked back toward where Rowan stood, sweeping her hands through the empty air. Rowan stood absolutely still, holding his breath. Sophia's hand passed just inches from his face, but the magic of the cloak held. Elena embraced Lily. "Lily, do not fear. This forest has its own voices. No harm can come to us here." Rowan slipped the gold branch into his pocket and continued on. Finally, they reached a forest of dazzling diamond and quartz. The light refracted through the crystalline branches, casting a prismatic spectrum across the cavern. Rowan knew this was his last chance. He snapped a delicate crystal branch. Ting! The sharp bell-like sound echoed intensely through the cavern. Lily shrieked, refusing to take another step. "No more! I will not go on! Someone is with us in these woods!" Even Elena stopped, her brow furrowing with deep concern. She stared into the emptiness. "If anyone is there, show yourself!" Silence hung heavy in the air. Rowan struggled to keep his heart from pounding as his fear was causing the cloak to flicker, revealing a faint, watery outline of his silhouette. After a few agonizing seconds, Elena turned to her sisters. "There is no turning back now. He is waiting for us at the palace gates. Come." Beyond the crystal forest lay a vast obsidian lake. The water was pitch black, but as smooth and reflective as a mirror. A thick silver mist hovered over the surface. Moored at the shore were 3 jet-black boats. Standing in each boat was a handsome young prince.
but their eyes were vacant, completely devoid of life or color, moving like soulless marionettes. The princesses boarded the boats. Rowan quickly slipped into Elena's boat.
The moment he stepped on board, the boat tilted heavily, sinking lower into the dark water. The prince rowing the boat frowned. "The boat feels unusually heavy tonight. It is as if I am carrying an invisible stone." Elena smiled sadly. "Perhaps you are simply tired from rowing us across this lake every night, Prince." The prince nodded mechanically. "Perhaps, but tonight feels different." The boats glided silently through the mist. On the far shore, a colossal palace rose from the dark water. Its walls were made of black obsidian, but its windows glowed with a sinister green and purple light. A throbbing, hypnotic rhythm of drums and flutes echoed from within. The palace doors swung open on their own as they approached. Inside, beneath floating chandeliers, hundreds of pale skeletal figures in lavish ball gowns were dancing in perfect, terrifying unison. Their faces were drawn and pale, and their smiles were frozen and artificial. As soon as the princesses entered, the music swelled. The sisters' eyes went blank. They took the hands of their ghostly princes and began to dance frantically, swept up in a mad, uncontrollable frenzy. Rowan watched in horror from a dark corner. He realized this was no joyful ball. The princesses were prisoners of a terrible curse, forced to dance to sustain this underworld realm. This was why their shoes were shredded and blood-stained by mourning. Sitting upon a throne of black ice at the far end of the ballroom was a terrifying figure. He wore royal robes of deepest black and a crown of frozen dark ice. His skin was the color of ash, and his eyes glowed like burning coals. He was Lord Malakor, the sovereign of this underworld. Suddenly, Malakor raised his hand. The music ceased instantly. The dancers froze like statues. Malakor's glowing red eyes swept slowly across the chamber, stopping exactly where Rowan stood. "I smell the blood of the living. An intruder has entered my realm." Rowan knew his cover was about to blow. He stood perfectly still, but the golden branch in his pocket shifted slightly, making a faint clink. Malakor lunged from his throne, moving with unnatural speed. He strode directly toward Rowan and reached out with clawed fingers. Rowan dodged to the side just in time. Malakor's hand grasped empty air, but the force of the movement tore a small gash in Rowan's cloak, exposing his left arm. "There! Over there!" a guard screamed. Rowan knew he had to act fast. He noticed a golden goblet sitting on a pedestal near the throne. A crimson mist rose from it, pulsating in sync with the fading magic of the palace. He realized this goblet was the anchor of Malakor's power. With all his strength, Rowan dashed toward the pedestal and snatched the goblet. "No!" Malakor shrieked in agony. "Do not touch the goblet." The instant Rowan seized the vessel, the palace began to violently tremble. Cracks webbed across the obsidian walls, and the torches began to sputter out. The ghostly dancers screamed as their forms began to dissolve into dust. Rowan sprinted toward the exit. Black-clad guards lashed out with their swords. One blade grazed Rowan's arm, but he pushed through, sliding under the heavy iron gate just as it slammed shut. He ran back through the collapsing forests, the ceiling above raining down heavy stones. Reaching the shore, he found Lily weeping in terror near the last boat.
Rowan jumped in, grabbed the oars, and rowed furiously across the churning lake. As they fled back through the dying silver, golden, and crystal forests, the underworld was caving in behind them. At last, the sisters and Rowan scrambled up the secret stone staircase and back into the safety of their bedchamber. Elena quickly slid the heavy bed back over the opening, sealing the passageway just as the first light of dawn broke through the windows. That morning, the atmosphere in the throne room was incredibly tense. King Aldrich sat on his throne, looking old and defeated. On the marble floor before him lay the 3 pairs of ruined, blood-stained slippers. Rowan entered the hall, his armor covered in dust and his left arm bandaged. King Aldrich looked up, sighing. "Rowan, have you also failed? You are wounded." Rowan walked calmly to the center of the room. He reached into his pack and placed his evidence on the floor. A branch of solid silver, its leaves chiming softly. A branch of pure gold, radiating a warm light. A brilliant crystal branch, refracting the morning sun. And finally, the pulsating golden goblet. The court fell into a stunned silence. King Aldrich stood up, his voice trembling. What are these?" Rowan spoke clearly, recounting his journey down the secret staircase, the 3 magical forests, the Black Lake, and the terrifying curse of Lord Malakor's obsidian palace. The king turned to his daughters. "Elena, Sophia, Lily, is this true?" Lily burst into tears, falling to her knees. Sophia and Elena bowed their heads in shame. "Yes, father," Elena said softly, tears streaming down her face. "Every word he speaks is the truth." "But why?" the king cried out. "Why did you keep this from me? Why did you go to that terrible place every night?" Elena stepped forward, revealing the long-hidden truth. "Father, do you remember the terrible plague that ravaged Eldoria when Mother was dying? Thousands were dying every day, and nothing could stop it." The king nodded. "Yes, but then it miraculously stopped." "It was not a miracle, father," Elena wept. "On her deathbed, Mother made a pact with Malakor to save our people. In exchange for the kingdom's survival, we were bound to dance in his palace every night to feed his magic. If we failed to go even once, our people would have been turned to stone. Malakor threatened to destroy you and the kingdom if we ever spoke of the pact." King Aldrich stepped down from his throne and embraced his daughters. "My dear children, you carried such a heavy burden alone. I was so blind." Rowan presented the golden goblet. "Your Majesty, this goblet was the source of Malakor's power. It is broken now. If we seal the passage below with stone and molten iron, the portal will be gone forever." The king ordered the royal masons to seal the subterranean passage immediately, locking the ruins of the Dark Realm away forever. The curse was broken, and the princesses were finally free. King Aldrich turned to Rowan. "Rowan, you have saved my daughters and freed our kingdom from an ancient shadow. I will honor my promise. Whom among my daughters do you wish to marry?" Rowan looked at Princess Elena. The heavy burden in her eyes had finally lifted, replaced by a warm, quiet gratitude. Rowan knelt before her. "Princess Elena, if you would have me, I would be honored to spend my life by your side." Elena smiled, placing her hand in his. "You have shown the wisdom and courage to free us, Rowan." She softly smiled. "I would be honored to walk beside you." Months later, a magnificent wedding was celebrated in Eldoria.
The streets were filled with music and laughter, and for the first time in years the morning sun rose over a castle free of dark secrets. The story of the three princesses became a legend told by the hearth on cold winter nights, not for the magic of the gold and silver forests, but to remind everyone of one simple truth. True courage is not found in the edge of a sword, but in the patience to seek the truth, the wisdom to understand it, and the love to protect those we cherish.
If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more magical adventures.